So how can you continue to positively create reality, to really stay in that feel-good place and do the things that you probably are aware of or will become aware of through watching this video and others on this channel, to become aware of what you're able to do, that you're a reality creator? How can you stick with that when things get tough? When it seems the universe, or whatever you want to call it, life is just throwing obstacle after obstacle after obstacle at you. And for all of you who are on this journey, if you've come to this video, you've probably experienced this at some point, and maybe even when this was happening, it caused you to regress or go back to where you were before, to kind of go back into the old story. And so I want to go over how you can navigate these tough times, how you can navigate when things are going quote unquote wrong. I'm going to give you a completely different perspective that will change everything for you, so that when you are going through the storm, you can remain calm. So that when these things start kicking up, you know exactly what to do. That's not going to hurt you during your plan or during your journey of creating reality as you want to create it. It's actually going to go a long way to speeding up the process and aiding you. And so these tough times are actually very much a part of this process. And so ultimately for us, what we want to be able to do is learn how to navigate these tough times. And I'm not just talking about tough times in a collective. I'm talking about on your personal journey, to really be focused in on what are the challenges, what are these things that are going wrong, this resistance that you may have towards it. Perhaps things are going really well, and it's super easy to remain in a place of abundance or creating your reality and gratitude when things seem to be going smoothly in the outer world. So let's say more money's coming in, or more opportunities are coming in, or just not really anything negative you perceive as negative is coming in. Well, of course, it's much easier to then stay on track. But what happens when the storm starts to come in, which it inevitably will? What happens when you start to hit a valley instead of a peak? What happens when the money's not coming in? What happens when you're not seeing so much movement in the outside, or the movement seems to be chaotic or negative? What do you do then? Well, I'm going to tell you what not to do, which is to be kind of resistant to it, and we'll get into that. But I'm also going to go over some of the best strategies, best ideas that I know of to help you during these times, again, to not only get through it, but to thrive when this is happening and to eventually see it as an amazing opportunity. So the first thing I want to cover is giving you more awareness to why these things even happen. And it's to do with something called the law of balance. And I want you to remember this as the primary law of the universe. The primary law is the law of balance. It even supersedes, it is above things like the law of attraction, which is actually under the umbrella of this law. The law of traction, Pearson's law, whatever you want to put in there, the law of balance is the predominant law of the universe. This law is always balancing things out, and you can see this, both obviously and more subtly if you really take a look. Even out in nature, you'll see things like natural disasters and storms and all these different things. What are they there for? They're there to balance something out. And this is not just something that happens in the external world in nature. Remember, you are a part of nature. Let's not forget that. It is something that you are intricately connected to and happens in your life. And so, for example, when you go to do something, life is going to balance it out in one way or another. And essentially in this video, you're going to learn how to balance things out so that you have more coherence, more beautiful divine complexity in your life, more decisions, or more decision space, as Tom Campbell would say. And when you do what we go over in this video, it opens you up to more possibilities. It brings more to you through the law of balance. And so the reason we talk about the law of balance is because the inner world, and I've said this a lot, but the inner world is the dominant world. It's what leads to all of this. All of this you can actually think of as an illusion. I know you've heard that before, and we get hooked into this illusion and everything else. But your outer world is essentially your inner world's history, your energetic history. There's a lag time between what comes into the outer through what you've been maintaining in the inner. In my last video, I covered this in depth. Essentially, your inner garden, I talked about the mirror principle, how what's happening internally will begin to reflect in the outer. but through the law of balance, because the universe has to balance things out. But here's what we have to talk about when it comes to this, because it's like, okay, well, I'm maintaining this beautiful inner world, and there's chaos on the outside. That doesn't seem to be balancing. That doesn't seem to be the same. Well, check this out. You see, because most people, when they're going through this shift, most people are coming from an old story that might be of victim mode. It might be of cursing the universe. It's coming with this place of where you've created kind of this garden of weeds and all of these other things. Now, energy cannot be created or destroyed, so it has to kind of show up and be released at some point in the outer world as you start to grow this new garden. It doesn't just go poof and go away. It has to be released and moved on. And again, energy is not created or destroyed. It's just picked up. You can tune into other frequencies. You can put your attention on certain energies, but you're not creating energy. When we talk about reality creation, you're actually not creating anything. You are just bringing forth things that are already in existence, and you're choosing the ones that you want to bring in. You're not creating it. You're not like making energy come out of thin air from nowhere into this moment now. You are playing off of energies that are already in existence in the universe. You are playing off of visions and imagery that, if you can imagine, already have the potential to exist in the physical universe. That's all that's really happening. So understand, you're not creating or destroying energy. You're just calling forth certain energies. And in the past, a lot of people have called forth, we'll just call them low conscious or negative energy. So if you think of it like a garden, like an inner garden, you've probably called forth a lot of weeds and it's crazy and chaotic. And now you're deciding to shift. I want to shift and really cultivate a better garden. Now, through the quantum to Newtonian transition point, there is a lag time in the outer world. The outer world follows the inner. So let's say you have this garden, but now you're changing it to this more kind of coherent garden. Well, that outer or that inner garden that was more negative and everything else doesn't just snap and go away. It's going to have to play out. It's going to be released. You may have heard, like, for emotions to actually play out, or for things, energy that's stuck in you to play out, it has to be felt. And it's the same in this case as well. It is going to play out in some form in the outer world. But the law of balance also does this for a few reasons. Because the universe, again, is about the law of balance. It doesn't really care in which way it balances. So, for example, let's say the chaos plays out in the inner world or in the outer world, and you've been doing a good job of maintaining your inner, but then because of that chaos, you then revert back to your old inner. The universe goes, okay, balance has been maintained. Because you were trying to grow into something else, it tipped the scales. So the universe creates this chaos. These things break apart. These things that you no longer need to get to the next place. For example, I've given the example of maybe you lose a job, maybe a relationship. Well, that thing wasn't going to support you in where you were going. But a lot of people then revert back to an old story. And so the universe is like, okay, things are back in balance. But if you stick with it when the storm comes, you maintain the inner world, you don't allow yourself to get sucked in or hooked into the chaos that's going on around you that's necessary, that needs to play out, that the energy needs to be dissipated, that, needs to be balanced out. And it will balance out if you maintain, again, that coherence in the inner world. And so this is what we're talking about. This is why these things happen. These so-called tests or challenges, and it's not like an egoic test from the universe, but it's ultimately kind of like the graduation event that you need to get to the next stage. So if you're trying to become someone else, like a higher version of yourself, that best next version of you, things are going to have to fall apart. That's chaos. Energy that you've been holding on to that won't serve you in this next place has to be released and manifest in some way. That chaos is going to be there. Again, it doesn't mean like all of it that you've been holding on to is going to manifest in these very specific ways, but be prepared that there's going to be some chaos because you are creating another inner world, a new inner world that doesn't align to your current external world. And so it's going to be chopped up and moved around, and things are going to fall off and things are going to fall apart. But this is so it can be rebuilt at a higher level of coherence that now matches that inner world through the law of balance. And again, the law of balance does not care in which way you go. If you revert back to the old story, it's like, great, keep the physical the same before this chaos ensued, keep it there. Or it goes, okay, their inner world's not changing, it's staying in this elevated state. Now we got to balance it out through the outer world, which just takes a bit longer. And if you weather this storm, this is why massive steps, in fact, it's required to make massive steps and huge leaps in your growth, is to be able to be calm in the face of this storm, in the tough times, to be able to have more loyalty to the vision than what's happening in your external. And if you have more loyalty to the vision will start to crystallize in the outer world. But this chaos has to happen first. The storm is going to happen. These things need to fall apart. Because again, let's say you have a partner and they're just not on the same journey as you. Well, they may need to fall away, not only for their own journey, but also for yours, because it's not in alignment. You know, trying to bring them onto the next step wouldn't work, or a job that completely takes you out of your heart and doesn't align to what you're trying to do, right? And truly in your heart, you want to, I don't know, do something like this, be an entrepreneur. You want to ride horses or be a horse trainer. That's from Alan Watts. But, you know, one of these things, well, something has to fall apart to create the space for this new thing, right? And so that's one of the reasons the chaos ensues, and the universe has to balance this in one way or another. It doesn't care which way, but I'm assuming you do. And so this is why we are going to work on maintaining that inner state. And I'm going to give you what these keys are to helping you do this. So just keep in mind, just to remember that life is a mirror. And so if you're making these big internal changes, it's going to lead to external changes. It's just going to reflect that. And just not to be fearful or scared when some of the chaos is playing out. Allow it to play out. Allow that energy to calmly, calmly as in you're remaining calm, it might go crazy, but allow it to play out and just really run its course. And then you'll have that kind of really nice peacefulness at the end of the storm, right? Then you'll have the higher level of coherence and clarity and purpose and everything else and manifestation and all of that. Opportunities now can suddenly start coming in. But what we want to do is remain calm and grounded during these situations to understand, again, so many people victimize themselves with this, but to understand that it's actually just natural. It's a part of the process. And now I'm going to give you some perspectives and some other tools that are going to help you through this, because inevitably you might hear this and still forget. Something happens in the external world, you lose some money, someone was a jerk to you, whatever else it is, and it takes some training to see that as actually a very purposeful thing. You know, none of that happens by happen chance. It's all a mirror. It's all essentially an illusion that's emanating from your inner world, that's trying to show you something, that's trying to help you grow, is trying to be the catalyst for you to get to this place you say you want to go. But we've been conditioned to look at those things as life screwing us over or to victimize ourselves when we look at these things. It's a conditioning. It isn't the truth. If we grew up on a completely different planet that conditioned us in different ways, we would look at these things and understand what's happening, because let's say we were brought up understanding these universal principles. We would respond completely different. Our subconsciouses would be completely different. That's not the case. So we just need to become aware of these things and start doing that for ourselves now. And that brings me to kind of key number 2. After having that awareness of understanding why things get tough, that's actually a part of the game that already might help you feel a bit of relief, knowing that, oh, actually everything's okay. This is just the way things work, right? And this also gets easier and easier the more you experience it, because there's going to be less and less chaos a lot of the time that needs to play out, or when it does play out, you'll know what's happening and you won't have so much resistance towards it, because you'll be honoring the inner world more than the outer world. But I want to bring you back to one of the other keys, and this is the second one that I already kind of mentioned, but I want to go deeper into it, and it's having more loyalty to the vision than to the current circumstances. There's a guy named Kevin Trudeau who has a great line, and it's don't trust appearances. And he does a whole deep dive on this and how this is like a master skill to not trust appearances. And why is this? Is because ultimately the appearance is the byproduct of what's happening in the inner. So if you're giving more importance, you're giving more priority to the external, well, your priorities are all mixed up. It's what's happening on the inner that should be the priority, because everything in the external comes from that inner. And this is why having more loyalty to that inner vision, to the energy, and remembering that life is an energetic game. We get trapped into thinking it's a physical game because here we are, I can touch my face and I can smell and I can hear and blah, 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 right? And we're raised in putting more importance and priority on these things. But the laws of the universe doesn't care what you've put more priority on. It still functions the way it functions regardless. And it's an energetic game. And so when you give more loyalty to the vision than what's appearing in your physical, then when the chaos ensues, guess what? You're not going to create all this meaning about it. You're not going to victimize yourself about it because you have more loyalty to the vision. You'll understand, okay, this stuff is happening. It's a natural part of the process. I'm not going to get sucked into it, which is what it's trying to do. Again, life's trying to balance, doesn't care which way. So if you get sucked into it and you go back to an old story, life's like, okay, we're balanced. But if you give more loyalty to the vision, the universe now suddenly has to balance in a different way. And again, it takes a bit of time for the physical to change because this physical is coalesced energy. This is gathered energy. Whereas when you tune into the energetic, you can tune into any energetic frequency or emotion right now. It might be harder for you to do others if you're not used to it. For example, if you're not used to being grateful, you can't. But with enough practice, you can tune into it right now. I can tune into a gratitude energy at this very moment because I've developed an attitude of gratitude. It's that simple. I can tune into, at this very moment, the energy of gratitude and resonate that out. And when you are becoming who you need to become, and you are being who you need to become, and your inner world is reflecting that, again, the outer world will have to mirror that. But the chaos is going to happen. The breakdown, the so-called tough times. And that's even a way of kind of victimizing ourselves, labeling it as tough. That's why I'm doing this, or I'm saying wrong, because that's a subjective way of looking at it, right? An event is just an event. We're the ones who put meaning on it. And two people can put completely different spins on something, even if it happened in the exact same way. And so why wouldn't you put a more positive spin on it that supports you on your journey versus a negative spin that's going to cause you to victimize yourself, right? So when this chaos ensues, seeing it as, oh my God, let's get excited because something big is about to come for me. Oh my God, what can I discover about myself and my journey from this? Like, oh, things are starting to break down, but I know if I just stick with the vision and I keep loyalty to the vision, that a new level of coherence is going to manifest in my physical world if I stay with it, if I stay calm in the eye of the storm. So just keep these things in mind. Aim to have more loyalty to the vision. Remember that where focus goes, energy flows, and you are living in the now, meaning where your focus is in any given moment is where you're putting your energy. Are you going to put it on the external, or are you going to put it in the place that the external comes from, comes out of, which is your inner? And if you cultivate that beautiful inner world, you give that loyalty to the vision, you tune in to who you need to become, but be it right now, like we went over in the last video I did, then you're going to be able to navigate this so-called chaos with so much composure and calmness because you understand what's happening, you understand the illusion of it, that it comes from this inner game, and you'll be able to stay rooted in that inner world and again, have more loyalty to that without putting all this faith or trust in appearances. So before we move on to the third key, please let me know in the comments what you have taken away or what has been like a light bulb aha moment for you so far. You can also update at the end if anything else pops up for you, but I would love to hear that in the comments to get some discussion going, to hear a little more about what's coming up for you and what you're finding valuable. So put that down below. Now let's move on to the third key. Now, what's great about this key is when you start using it and you realize that you're becoming good at it, you're becoming a reality creation machine and master. Because ultimately, again, like I've mentioned, the outer world follows the inner. And so if we're putting all this meaning and emphasis on the outer world from a negative perspective, and you're a meaning creating machine, meaning it is up to you what meaning you give to things. Again, you may have been conditioned into giving certain categories of things certain meanings, and that's not your fault. But it is up to you to recalibrate, reconstruct, reprogram your subconscious to give new meanings. Because the meanings you give to things are what you're going to get back. For example, I label this as negative, congratulations, more negativity coming your way. I label this as positive, congratulations, more positive coming your way. You are a meaning-giving machine. And so when you learn to celebrate the bends in the river, and you can genuinely do that, you know you're in a great place, and you're going to be a reality creating master. And all reality creating masters, all people I know who are living lives of amazing purpose and fulfillment and love and gratitude and abundance, do this. Every high-level mentor I've had does this. I've noticed in my own life when I do this, it just leads to magic in my life, where it becomes a miraculous experience. And so you celebrate the bends in the river. And the way I want you to think about it is assume that you're on this like river, and it's kind of like life's river taking you towards higher and higher places, right? It's like kind of returning you home to what you are, and through different experiences, it helps you do that. But suddenly, you can see kind of straight, and you can see everything, and you're in the, let's say, the known, and then suddenly a bend in the river is coming by. And you can't see what's on the other side of that bend. You're trying to look on the other side, but it's just this thick, brush and trees and foliage. You can't see it. And what happens when people get to that bend, this is kind of when the chaos is happening. Let's say you're also, like there's some rapids coming up. There's some chaos is about to come through. And you don't know what's on the other side of that. Most people react like this. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know what's on the other side of that bend. But what if X, Y, or Z happens? They start catastrophizing. And what I want you to, or invite you, again, you don't take any of this on board, but what I would invite you, in what I've seen works and what has worked for clients who've got amazing results, is to do this instead. To come from the perspective of what's around the bend. Wow, like what's going to happen if I go into those rapids? Oh, what's on the other side? What does the universe have in store with me? And so to essentially come from a meaning or a perspective of, life is always kicking my ass, or, how much worse can it get? You hear people with these kind of like outlook on life, like, oh, can it get any worse? And I invite you to change that to a more general belief of how good can life get? How fun can life get? How many more amazing things can life show me? How many more amazing experiences can life give me? And to come from that curiosity state. And when you can genuinely connect to that, and you can embrace the bends, celebrate even the bends in the river, you're going to hit a magical flow like you've never seen before. And the thing is, to understand, this is not just you creating the meaning of this being positive. It also, in my eyes, at a base level is. You see, a loving universe, which I believe we're in, would not allow you to just move to the next grade, to the next grade, to the next grade without picking up things that actually help you operate at that next place, or learning the things you need to learn. If you're a constantly expanding being, if you're someone who's, wants to grow, how are you supposed to do that without learning the things you need to operate at the next stage? That wouldn't be growth. That would just be a comfort-centric experience where you wouldn't need to do anything. And so understanding that life is not screwing you over, it is just giving you signposts and messages and ways in which you can grow. It's bringing you a bend and the rapids, not because it's trying to screw you over, but because it knows you can handle it, and that if you embrace it, you're going to come out the other side stronger. You're going to come out the other side more aware. You're going to come out the other side with massive opportunities. And so to also understand that it is that way, and you'll find this. Again, you may be like, oh, is it really? Well, I would, again, really invite you to try it, and you'll see for yourself. Because anyone who has experienced this will tell you that when they did embrace it, truly, and they truly did that, not to try it out, but truly embraced it, truly celebrated the bends, that it led to good things. There has never been a moment, I'll say this right now, there has never been a time where I followed this or followed my heart that looking back has led me astray. It has always led me to a good place. It has always led me to things that I knew not of before I embraced it, and then led me to things I couldn't think of, but the universe had in store for me, or my higher self had in store for me. Or, the unknown coming in, and again, bringing this coherence into my life. Because your mind can only think from the level of the known. But if you embrace the unknown, which is the bend in the river, it's the unknown, and stop fearing the unknown and instead get excited about the unknown, magical things begin to happen in your life. And these so-called difficult, tough things start to become fun. You start to almost seek them out, like, oh, here's a tough time coming, and you might even find that you're getting more excited than you are getting fearful. And that's a magical place to be. And I'm not talking to artificially create this, but when genuinely in the flow of life this stuff starts to come up, to start celebrating it, to start being, again, grateful to the universe for bringing you things that are there to help you see something, to help you gain something, to help you get a tool you need, to help you bring in an opportunity, to help you even let go of or remove something that's not serving you in your highest. So learn to not only embrace, but celebrate the bends in the river, and magic will happen. And another one I'll give you is just remember that when you fall down and scrape your knee on the journey of growth and expansion, start digging for the gold. And the fourth key is just to put your mind at ease a little bit, because when it comes to creating reality too, you want your mind and heart in coherence, and it's really hard to do that if your mind is continually sabotaging yourself. And so it's fine to use your mind. It is a beautiful tool that's meant to assist you on this journey. We use it for so much. It's just understanding that the heart, this more energetic place, is the leader and the one in my eyes that should be navigating, but the mind is great at, following those directions and assisting you along the way. And so one thing I want to give your mind to put it at ease is a time frame for how these things can play out. And this is known as the quantum to Newtonian transition point. And understanding this can just make this a little bit easier. Now, again, it isn't a definite that things will happen in this way, because ultimately it might be that you're doing something that's making it take more time, which is fine, and life will give you ways in which to discover that that's happening. It'll give you feedback. But ultimately that it takes 6 to 8 weeks of focused particle flow in order for dramatic positive changes to happen in the physical world. Now again, it's really focused energy flow, which means like for the majority of each and every single day, you are focused on that energy, on that singular kind of more, we'll say, higher vibrations or higher consciousness. And you're not teeter-tottering and going back and forth and all this and have one good week and one bad week, then 6 weeks is up and you're like, where is it? Well, that's not focused particle flow, right? And again, so it might take longer than 6 to 8 weeks depending on where you are in the journey, but just to honor where you're at, you're there for a reason, and life is going to help you if you listen, if you do the things we went over in this. But that is the law of how the law of balance also operates, 6 to 8 weeks of focused particle flow. And if you're doing that, really allowing yourself, remember where focus goes, energy flows, that's what will start building in your life. But just also remember that when you focus, say, on things like love and abundance and contribution and calmness and peace for that long, chaos will ensue, because if you weren't doing that beforehand, things have to balance out, right? And to maintain that focus, that loyalty to the vision, which is another way of saying it, to maintain that focus, all in that place, because if 2 weeks goes by, chaos comes up and then you revert back, well, that's not enough time. Most people give up after a week, 2, 3, it doesn't matter, right? You won't start seeing the results unless you can focus in on that. But really, how much is 6 to 8 weeks when it comes to dramatic positive changes in your life? It's like 2 months or less. It's not that much time if you really think about it. And guess what? As you start doing this, it'll become habitual and easier, and it'll just become something that's second nature to you. So to put your mind at ease, remember the quantum to Newtonian transition point. And again, if it's not happening after that time, don't victimize. I just got to reiterate that point. Look for the signs, the messaging. Why is this happening? What did I really focus in for 6 to 8 weeks, which is difficult for a lot of people to do at their current level that they're at, simply because they haven't done that before. So you'll get better at it. But ultimately, it's another key. Where focus goes, energy flows. If you focus on the so-called toughness that's happening outside of you, you invite more of that in. But if you focus on the inner garden and the loyalty to the vision, you're going to really speed up the process. All right, so if you stick to these 4 keys, I am completely confident that you'll not only be able to weather the storm of the chaos outside of you, but you'll be able to thrive as it's going on, and also understand why it's going on, and even be grateful for the storm. How great would that be when you get to a point of understanding this is how life works? Be grateful for it and thankful to life for bringing you these things. Understanding it's not punishment. In fact, it's for your benefit. And so that's what's going to happen when you apply these keys. Now, if you enjoyed this video, I would really appreciate it if you like it, and also hit that subscribe button and notification bell to not miss any more videos that we do. I release videos every single week like this. Now, if you want to work with me closer on principles like this to really get massive results in your life quickly, I take people through a 6-month transformation program that takes you deep into ideas like this, practical ways of applying it. We have weekly coaching calls with a peer group of like-hearted people. We've had over 1,000 success stories of people going from, whatever they were doing before, kind of more in this not so fulfilled life, transforming completely into what we call through me. So kind of going from this hustle grind or victim mode into working with life in flow, which brings all of these magical things to them. And I have a lot of success stories I could share with you if you are interested. But ultimately, if you are interested in that, I have a link down below that will give you more information. It'll also show some of the people who've gone through it and gotten success. But I would go check that out down below if you want to work closer to me. I help facilitate people through that. And you're just ready to get results and you want to do it, right now. You want to do it efficiently with the best wisdom, information, and tools that you can get, and also be here like 6 months from now as a completely upgraded person. Anyway, thank you so much for tuning into this video. Remember, you are loved, and I'll see you in the next one.